Hello, Miss Sarah.
Hello, Gigi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you could be a part of this.
Oh, of course.
This
I'm
is
thrilled to be
awesome.
here.
Miss Gloria is going to join us in a little bit, but we want to get to know you. Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, it was really Phantasm 3 really knocked the socks off of so many people, having two strong, beautiful black women into this film. It was just amazing, and it set the tone because, as you know, that you know the whole thing. Oh, well, there's the black person. That person's going to die before the end of the film, right?
Right.
And
yes, I do.
but your scene was it was. I mean, the way that it. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anybody, especially a female, killed off the way that yours was in the mausoleum. That was like, oh my gosh,
I know. It was pretty dramatic. It was horrifying,
And it had to be for the first time you saw it on camera, or saw it on the screen rather.
Yeah.
But also, it must have been like really a challenge to shoot the thing, because I know how I'm his goop girl, so I know how it works, and it's pretty. I mean, like I've had to do cat before, and it's just there's nothing you can describe it as, I mean, this is very visceral,
Yeah.
Did they use the pumper machine or pumper sphere on you for that?
Yeah, first of all, they had this drill that came like within inches of my
Right,
head.
literally.
Within. And I remember just my eyes going across and watching this thing come towards my head and thinking, I hope it doesn't, penetrate my forehead. But they did have, I don't know how they did it, but I remember reversing the camera so that the blood ended up looking like it was shooting out, but initially it was coming towards me.
Right.
And the way they rigged it up with the hoses and everything behind me, it was pretty creative. It was pretty cool the way they did it. They kind of figured it out as they were going along. And, and I like that, it was cool.
I mean, it was so unique for the time too.
Yeah.
Very, very unique. I mean, and then to have you guys both as such little badass little characters as the macho ninja chicks,
that was so much fun.
Oh my God, that was so much fun.
I'm so used to playing I was used to playing the sweet girl, the friend next door who was really nice and kind of meek. So for me, when I got the call for the audition, and they're like, yeah, you have to play a military chick, and you have to wear the boots, and you have to be tough. I was so excited about that.
I bet.
I was like, oh, I get to kick some
Well,
ass.
as an actor, that you had to be of a stretch for you, right? And then and to be able to branch out finally, and it's like, yes,
it was so much fun. And then just there's the image of Gloria and I standing there,
back
I love, to back.
That is my favorite shot of you. It is my favorite. Yeah, definitely. The girls. Oh gosh,
It was a lot of fun.
Well, now you grew up in Illinois, right?
I was born in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois.
Wow.
Yeah, but I left there when I was very, very young.
We love Illinois.
Yeah. Oh, you do?
Yeah, we've shot there many times. We produced one of Reggie's albums there, and
nice.
we were in Aurora, right?
Aurora.
And we shot many times there on different films. And then there's a convention there that we really love called. I'm blanking, but they're really fabulous people, fabulous.
Yeah, really lovely Midwestern town to grow up in. All of my grandmother, my great-grandmother, great aunts, everyone, they're still there actually.
Wow, are they?
They're still there.
Oh, how blessed.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Born and raised there. They never left.
Well,
Yeah.
That's what our grandmas and mamas do.
Yeah.
My mama, she moved a little bit. She was born in she was born in Port Lavaca, which is in Texas, and then she moved to Corpus Christi, where I was born. Then we moved to Houston, and then from there she went back to Yoakum, where my grandmother was living, and then she passed, and then she met my stepfather, and turned out they were high school alumni, and so they got together. Now they're living in Austin.
Okay.
So
Austin.
Austin, but she can't leave
I've heard
Texas.
great things about it.
Oh yeah, I think you would love it, especially the theater there. It's just amazing. Just a whole other feel, an atmosphere. It's not as red state, if you will, you know, as the rest of the town,
That's what I've
of
heard.
the state. Austin's very, very progressive.
Yeah,
So.
I would love to go visit one day. I
Yeah.
heard the music there
You know,
is
Michael
awesome, too.
Baldwin lives there too.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He does some little acting classes and stuff like that. Has his own little acting school.
Oh,
so
that's
like
cool.
that.
That's very cool.
Now, what kind of neighborhood did you grow up in?
Well, I left Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, and we moved to Rochester. So when I was in Rochester, because that's really where, you know, because I left Champaign when I was just, I was a baby. So when I was in Rochester, it was awesome because we were able to just play in the woods, you know. I ran in the woods after school and played tag there and walked home from school. And, you know, so it's like I had my own life as a kid separate from my parents, you know, which I feel like now kids don't really get to do that so much because they're kind of, you know, carted from place to place.
They're
you
tethered
know?
everywhere.
A lot of helicopter
Yes.
parenting, and I do this. I do it. You know, I'm guilty of it as well.
Well, they're our precious babies. So.
Of course, yeah. So, but Rochester was really awesome because, you know, it's just a lot of kids playing and in the streets and coming over and
bicycles
and
ball in the street.
You know,
my brother lived in Rochester for
Yes,
for years and years. In fact, he passed away there. But he worked for Kodak.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the big company in town, you know, and he loved it.
Yeah, we're actually going to be appearing there in a couple of months.
Oh, okay.
So
fun.
that's really cool.
That's awesome.
So tell me about when you were in school. Were you a standalone, or were you did you have a clique that you hung out with, or were you
In
tight
high
tight
school
friendships,
or
whenever?
just whenever in school? Let's see. I moved from Rochester. When I was in Rochester, I had all of course, my friends who played on the block, you know, who'd come over on Saturdays and ask me to go play kickball. But then we moved to Newton, Massachusetts. And that was a little bit different because the kids were all sent to summer camps in the summertime. So there wasn't anyone to play with. There wasn't anyone around.
Yes, yeah. I never got to go to camp. So.
Yeah, they were all
I remember that
off,
though.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't used to that. So I was always looking for someone to play with. But actually, when everyone was in school during the school year, I had wonderful friends. They were all the artists and the musicians and the dancers and the creative ones, you know?
That's great.
So it was
Were
really
there
nice.
some good art programs in school, or?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
There were great art programs and there's great music, and it was just a wonderful time for creativity. You know, I didn't feel like it was really supported and nurtured.
Nurtured.
Yeah.
I was just looking for
That's
that
great.
It was
That's a
really
great
supported
environment.
and nurtured, and I remember just being in all kinds of different plays when I was in high school, and of course I played soccer as well. But
Wow.
it was nice. It was a great time to find yourself and kind of, you know, when you're going through
Explore.
puberty and adolescence, make mistakes, but find your way, and it was okay. You know, through the arts, we kind of, you know,
That's great.
created our own little community, and it was so it was awesome. It was really nice.
What scared you as a child?
Well, I almost drowned. So that was
Oh, my
one thing
goodness.
that scared me.
Wow.
And the ironic thing about it is,
Are you still afraid of water, or are you good with it?
I'm not afraid of water
So
anymore.
you just kind of confronted it and went, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, you know, I've got to be honest with you. I confronted it, but I don't make it a point to go on long cruises if I can avoid it.
Yeah, I hear
It's
that.
not like the first thing I want to do, you know? If I can fly someplace, I'd rather do that,
Yeah.
you know, as opposed to taking a cruise. The idea of taking a cruise appeals to me. Once I
Yeah.
got on the boat, I'd probably be fine, but just getting on initially is just a little nerve-wracking still for me. But yeah, so I was pretty frightened when I almost drowned. And that's one thing that frightened me. And,
Gosh, I can't imagine. I almost drowned as a child as well. And my stepfather's just kind of standing there like, do-de-do. And the lifeguard had to jump in. And I was literally just a little distance from the side. And I could not get that extra oomph to get to the side. And he jumped in and saved me. And I just kind of, and gave my stepfather a really nasty look, which really thrilled me. So,
that's really frightening.
but you don't get over it. My mother doesn't swim at all, and so she had to, when she had to go through aquatics physical therapy, she was like, that involves water. And I went, yes, Mom, that involves water.
Yeah.
You don't have to swim in it. They'll catch you. It's okay.
You know, but I must say, though, because I experienced that, my kids are fantastic swimmers.
I bet.
You know, I made it a point to make sure that they could swim.
That makes sense.
Did you have
you know,
the
that's
little
great.
swim wings?
The swim wings, but the swim classes, swim team, you know.
There you
I
go.
had them join our community where I
Right.
live right now. You know, we have a swim team in the community that's been around for like over 30 years apparently. And so all the kids in the neighborhood get together and they compete against one another.
Wow,
in each
that's
neighborhood.
great.
So they're great swimmers, and I don't have to worry about that.
That's
So,
great. Awesome.
You know, they won't have to experience what I did, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
And that's what we live for, right?
Yeah.
And you studied at university in New York and Boston, is that right?
Yeah, I studied at Boston University for a year. And
Did you
then
enjoy the college environment?
I did. Well, you know, I lived 6 miles from my home in Newton. And when I went off to school, you would have thought I was moving to another country because my mother cried for about 2 weeks, you know. And I'm like,
goodness.
Mom, I'm only 6 miles away from home, you know. But it was nice because I was so familiar with Boston and the city, and you know, I knew my way around, and I felt very comfortable there. The conservatory was wonderful. The one reason why I ended up leaving the conservatory is because I wanted to take more classes. We were only required to take one English class.
Right.
And I wanted to take more, like, you know, at NYU I could
Sure.
take philosophy and psychology along with the drama.
Right.
And I was able to double major as well. So that was the incentive to actually go to New York, not to
That's
mention
exciting.
the fact that once I got to New York, I felt like I could breathe. You
Yeah.
know? I felt like
Whole other environment.
it's a
right?
whole other environment, a whole other world. It's like, you know, you could just be who you wanted to be, and it was, everyone was just like, oh, you're interesting. Oh, I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you. And where are you from? And you know, so it was just so freeing for me as a creative person to go there and meet people from all over the world and hear all the languages and
Oh yeah.
food and
Oh yeah.
you know, just exposed to so many different cultures.
Just adds color to the tapestry, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, especially being an actor and
Right.
creating different people, you know, actually bringing them out of myself, you know, because that's ultimately what we
Right.
do, right? It was so rich. The conversations were rich, you know, the being so introspective
Yep.
at such a young age.
Yeah.
It was fun, you know.
Yeah.
It's a
That's
great place to grow
awesome.
up.
It's great.
And wow, you were with the Alvin Ailey Repertory Dance Group? Oh my gosh.
I actually studied with them. I trained with them. I wasn't a part of the troupe per se,
Okay.
but I studied with them. So what I would do is I'd take my classes. I was in Circle in the Square at NYU, and I'd take my classes all day, and I'd take my English classes and so forth, and then I would rush over to, you know, Midtown and run into my class at Alvin Ailey and take my dance classes, and then I would
Wow.
go home and do my homework and then start all over again.
Oh goodness.
And I would just
Not too busy though,
not
right?
too busy.
No.
I was super busy. But you know, the thing is that I loved it so much, you know. I really loved it. And I just remember calling my mother and saying, Mom, I'm so tired. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. And she said, well, baby, you can come home. And that's all she had to say was, you can come home. And I was like, no,
No, I'm
I think
good.
I can figure it out.
I'm good.
I'll figure out how to make
Figure
this
it
work.
out. Yeah.
So, what was the discipline like under Larry Moss and Tony Greco?
The discipline, I studied with Larry Moss a very short period. I think I only took one session with him. Actually, I only took one session with him. And so I just remember that was shortly after I think I'd had my son. So for me, it was about getting my feet wet and kind of getting a feel of what it's like to be creative again after being a mommy and nursing.
Finding yourself again.
Finding myself again. Tony, on the other hand, Tony Greco, he has been in very, all I can say is that I love him very much. And I love him very much because he's just so brilliant as it pertains to the way that he teaches and the way he sees his students. He doesn't see you as a clump of people, he sees the individual.
Right.
And he's really able to help you kind of get in touch with who you are
Right.
as an individual. He was able to help
Bring
you
the
do that.
best out of you.
Bring the best out.
Right.
And it was so empowering because I hadn't seen him for over 16 years. I remember
Wow.
I had just given birth to my son, and then I, left, and then I came back. I remember calling him up and saying, "Can I come back to your class?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And so I went back to the class, and
Oh, that's
the first
great.
day I was trembling, and he
Aw.
walked up to me and said, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "I'm scared to death." And he says, "Okay, let's do this." Okay, let's
Wow.
go. We
That's
got
great.
this.
Yeah.
But Tony is, he was, before children, before marriage, he was, my coach, when I was in my early 20s. And now at this other stage of my life, he's helping me enter into another stage of acting and the depth of who I am as a woman right now.
Right.
And I could go on forever, but he's an amazing man.
Wow.
Really, really, truly special human being. Yeah.
Can you tell us about the term organic theatricality?
I knew you were going to ask me this question, and where did you get that?
It was a description that they use a lot with describing the Alvin Alley Repertory Theater or Repertory Dance Company, and I had to look it up.
Organic theatricality. I've never heard that, and I remember. Organic theatricality. I mean, I can riff on it.
Theatricality is typical of all forms of folk theater, became an organic trait of professional stage. It was used by the directors in the early 20th century in their struggle against the Philistine bourgeois theater, and was a means of bringing the contemporary stage closer to the sources of folk culture.
Organic theatricality. I guess the everyman theater, the theater for everyman.
That's
So
what
it
I was
wasn't-
wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the feeling I'm getting from it. I'm just taking a stab at it,
Yeah.
but I would think that it's something that perhaps that everyone can relate to, and it wasn't an elitist kind of theater
Right.
experience.
That's what it sounded like. It sounded like it was really down to earth and grassroots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to
What was the most important thing that you learned from these masters?
To trust yourself. To trust that all of the tools, everything you need all the characters are inside, and to trust
Yep.
that.
Yep.
That they're alive there. You just have to allow your, your sensory work and your approach. You have to allow them to surface, and bring them to life. But they're all there. Yeah.
And you performed on Broadway, right?
I did. I was an understudy on Broadway. I played Risa in Two Trains Running.
Oh,
And that, working with Lloyd Richards and August Wilson, was pretty extraordinary. And I didn't realize how extraordinary it was at the time because I was so young when I did it. I knew that when I first started working with them at the Doolittle Theater before we actually moved to Broadway, I kept saying, I want to go to Broadway, I want to go to Broadway with this production. And I was working with amazing actors, Lawrence Fishburne, Al White, Bosco Lee Brown, but working with Lloyd it's magical when you work with directors and writers who are writing from their soul, their spirit.
right. There's a
there's-
part of them in the characters that they generate.
Oh, absolutely. And the way that Lloyd directed, my perception of it, the way that I felt listening to him give direction was, it was so intuitive and so, it was just, he was speaking from his heart. And he was speaking from his heart as the director to the character.
Right.
To the character that you were bringing
Right.
to him to mold, to help
That makes
mold,
sense.
And it was a beautiful interaction. It was a beautiful creative creation that we were all making together, being a part of the cast and so incredibly supportive.
What's the one theatrical performance that you always wanted to do but never got to?
always wanted to, and I worked on this in class, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Oh, I love that one. Yeah.
And I always wanted to do, I worked on it in Tony's class, and that's actually the first scene that he actually asked me to do when I came back into class, and I didn't understand it at the time.
Wow.
But it was something that I had wanted to work on years before, but I wasn't ready for it. I didn't understand it the way I thought of it. You know?
There's a time and a place,
and there's
right?
a time and there's a place.
There
but
you go.
when I approached it, and when I lived with that character, Maggie, there was, you know, you think of, you see Elizabeth Taylor playing that role and so forth, and you think, oh, she's angry, she's drunk, she's this, she's that. Oh, she's witty, she's so smart, she's cutting, she's powerful,
Right.
you know, and that's what I remember saying to Tony when I came to class. I said, Tony, they want me to play all these roles that are so powerful. Now, mind you, I'd just been nursing and taking care of kids for so long, so I was a little removed from everything, and of course my power. And I said, do they want me to, I'm going in for all these roles, these powerful, these strong women, and I'm not feeling that. I don't know where to find that. And so he's like, play this, you know? And I didn't make the connection at the time, but after I lived with the character and I played her, and it's just, it was like I woke up to my power as a woman.
Right.
Not as a little girl.
Right.
But as a woman.
Right.
You know? And I'm getting chills right now just saying it, but it was just like, I'm unstoppable now.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I can do anything.
Anything that you
And
put
what's
your mind
great
to,
about
right?
what's great about it is that you were expressing that to other women.
Yes.
And they're
yes.
picking up on it. And you know, that's what's so great about the arts that we're involved in.
Yeah.
You can really actually help somebody to, you know, change their lives sometimes.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's just, it's terrific, you know. And so that's why, you know, you have to work at being so engaging on screen, or, you know, when I play music for an audience, or you just have to be there, be there now.
Yeah. Just be present and
Be present.
be powerful and what was so great about playing Maggie too was, you know, women were taught, oh, we have to be, you know, there's
Thus
still
and
that
so.
stigma,
Yeah.
you know, of, you know, you have to look a certain way, and you got to do this, you got to do
Right.
that. Maggie was just, bleh. You know what I mean? She was just like, bleh.
Take it or leave
Take
it.
it or leave it, baby.
In
This
your
is what you
face.
get,
And if
right?
you leave it, you make me happy
You
anyway.
know, but that made her even sexier, didn't
Yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah,
It was
yeah.
just like eating the chicken and
Yeah.
you know, it was just like I was just like yes, right? It was so much fun.
That's great.
I bet I can just see you doing that.
Oh,
too.
yeah, I would love to do a production of that. Yeah.
Now, your husband is a 5-time Grammy-nominated songwriter and producer. Do you get to work on any projects together?
You know, we haven't worked on anything. Let me think. I think he did. Did he do something? I can't remember off the top of my head. Did we work together on something? He did. He did the music for a film that I did was called 7 Days, and he worked on the music for that, the sound for that particular film. I think that was the first and the only thing that we actually worked on together. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's tough. I mean, Reggie and I have been together for 25 years. We've been married for 17. So, I mean, it is not easy being married in this industry. And so what is your one piece of advice that you would give to married young couples working in the entertainment industry?
Let it flow. There are no rules. There's no right, there's no wrong. All of the traditional things that you've been taught, that, you know, women do this and men do this, or this is how you're supposed to do this, and this is how you plan that. When you're a creative
This is what a
person,
normal family
this
looks
is what
like.
a normal family looks like, right?
Yeah.
You know, you have to create your own normal family.
Right.
Your own way of doing things. I remember saying to my mother the other day, I was like, Mom, you know, I've got stuff over here and I've got notes over here. And she said, honey, you've always had note stickums everywhere. She said, but let me ask you something. Do you get everything done? And I said, yeah, I do. She said, so you're organized in your own way? And I said, yeah, I guess I am. That's one way to look at it, you know? So that's
You
what
do
I would
you.
say. Just do you. As a young couple, you just have to entrust. is so important because I remember
Yeah.
when I was working at a recording studio and I was working late at night, and of course my husband was working. That's where we met. You know, he had crazy, still does, crazy hours. You know, getting home very late. But because I had the experience of working at a recording studio and seeing all the engineers and the artists working late at night,
There's no suspicious eyes. Or,
there's no. I
Yeah.
understood how hard they worked.
yeah.
I understood the hours. I understood that
Why they take so long.
why they take so long. The creative process sometimes it takes
Yep.
a long time.
Yep.
Right? And I understood that, you know, during the day they had to take care of their admin work, and at night they were creative people, you know, because they had to balance their lives, you know. So because of that, you know, I think our marriage has sustained, you young ones, because we trust each other. I understand the hours. I understand what he's doing at the studio, you
And
know,
why.
and why
yeah.
he's doing it, and the loving something or some other than the person that you're married to.
Right.
There's a love affair going on being
There is.
a
Yep.
creative person, you
Yes.
know,
Yep.
being an actor or being a mixer producer. You know, there's a creative, wonderful love affair that goes on, and not being jealous of that or trying to take that away. You know.
Well, and
it's-
I always say that you, when you're doing it, whether it's a movie or a film, whether it's a film project or a music or writing, you're giving birth. You're taking it from a spark in your head
yeah.
to something that generates in your soul, and then you put it out on paper,
Yeah.
and or on the screen, or in someone's ear, you know,
Yeah,
and that's birthing. It ain't easy, baby.
It ain't easy. It ain't easy.
So yeah, so I completely see where
Yeah.
you're coming from. I really, that's really good advice.
Just really loving each other through the whole process.
Yeah.
You know, just loving it and supporting one another is like key. you
Yes,
know.
I agree. I totally agree. Now, what projects are you working on these days?
You know, I just finished working on a film in Atlanta called Good, which is going to be starring Lou Gossett Jr. It's in
Oh,
a, yeah,
wonderful.
Really excited about that. Just finished shooting that about 3 weeks ago. So that's fun. That's something that's coming out. I was a part of Homeward LA,
Wow.
and was actually able to tell the story. Was asked to tell the story, which I feel very honored about, of someone by the name of Lynn. I told her story of her transition from being homeless in her life and being a child and so forth. And that was such a pivotal, to be able to step into her shoes as much as I could possibly do so. I really did my absolute best in a very respectful way.
Sure.
Changed my life in a way that I can't articulate right now.
It's very got to be very difficult. I mean, especially when you're doing something about someone who's actually a living, breathing person,
Yeah.
and you want to do them justice.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know? So,
Yeah.
and you don't want to offend them or to put them off or represent them in a bad light.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
So it was a really very lovely experience in the sense that, you know, many hours and long conversations on the phone with her, you know, I had, and I'm just thankful that I was asked to do that because I have so much respect for her. And I look at her and I think about her and I think, if you can live through that, I can do anything. I can't even match what she had experienced in her lifetime, you know. But it was just an honor to bring it to light so that people could see that. A lot of times we think, oh, when you're homeless, you're homeless because and people stereotype, you know. It's,
Right, they do.
It's because you're on drugs, or it's because you're, you know, I'm like sweating like crazy because
Sorry.
you're on drugs, or because, you know, you.
So you win a rye in your life somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somehow are a
Like it's
failed
your-
human being.
Yeah, but we,
Yeah.
Reggie and I
Right.
have done a lot of activism for homeless and homeless coalition and like that, and we've actually been asked to. I'm an elected official in our little village, if you will, And one of the things that keep coming up is about, because we do a lot of park activism for parks, and one of the things that unfortunately that comes up with parks is homelessness. And so we get asked a lot about, we did one of the only homeless town hall meetings in Long Beach, California, where the mayor actually instructed her people to come in, sit down and listen. And then we had the homeless people come in and fed them, and it didn't matter what it was that they had a problem with. We would put it up on the board, and we would address them with the various departments, and it made a lot of improvements. So we're being asked again in Crestline now about that very issue again. And so it's just sad to see it. I mean, when we go down to San Diego for Comic-Con, I mean, there's this whole section down near where the convention center is. It's just nothing but rows and rows and streets and streets of
just
homeless
lines
people.
of folks.
And it's heartbreaking, because we've had a friend that had that was in Long Beach who came from fairly upper middle class family, and they had his family actually owned 2 historic buildings or houses in the historic district, and but he had that homeless thing, and he preferred living in his beat up RVs rather than he was a hoarder on top of that, so he wanted to hoard in his houses and then live in his RV. And it's like he could not get past that. He couldn't stay in one place for a long period of time, and because there's a lot of mental illness that goes along with it. It becomes a condition in and of itself. It's really sad. So I'm glad to see that there's the government for California and for the LA County area are starting to take a look at it in a different light.
Yeah, I was really touched by one woman who, she had 3 children. She was a single mom, and she lost her job, and she fell behind on her rent. And next thing they knew, it was Christmas, and they were homeless.
Yeah.
And they spent their Christmas in the park, and she was just like a billion other people in the world who got behind, and
it's easy to do.
Ended up living in the park. And she was able to, after a couple of years of living on the street with her children, she was able to get a home again. She actually bought a home, and she had another job. And
that's great.
So it was just, she didn't have a mental illness. She wasn't on drugs.
It was circumstances.
It was just circumstances, just things that just happened. And
it shouldn't be that way. There shouldn't be that way.
It was very.
Let's see. How did you come about your audition with Don Coscarelli?
You know what? I just remember I just moved to Los Angeles, and my agent called me up and said, you have an audition for Phantasm. And I called up a friend of mine, and I said, I'm going in for my first movie. It was my first movie. And I said, I just moved from New York. And I said, well, New York, the approach is a little bit different. When they ask for a military woman, you're kind of raw. You don't wear any makeup. You don't do this and that thing, And he's like, well, you're in Hollywood now. So he glamorous but raw. Okay. And I was like, okay. I'm like, what does that mean? And I just remember, he said, take no prisoners. That's what he said. When you go and take no prisoners. So I was like, okay, I'm just going for it, right? So I remember going into the audition. I remember this like it was yesterday. It's so crazy. And I said I think I had maybe 3 or 4 lines to say. And I threw myself up against the wall as if the ball was coming towards me. And I slid down the wall, and I fell onto the floor. And they're like, okay, thank you. and I got up and I left, and I was like, okay, well, I did everything that I could possibly do. We'll see how it goes. And I ended up getting the job. Obviously that's why I'm here. But
that's great.
It was awesome. It was really a lot of fun, and I was so excited about it.
Tell us something about your character, Tanesha, from Phantasm 3: Lord of the Dead, that nobody else knows.
Nobody else knows about my character, I don't know. What's about Tanesha? She, about the character, about me playing the character, like what I was going through at that time while I was playing the character, or?
You interpret it.
Like what made her her?
What? Just interpret it.
Let's see.
Go where it takes you.
Yeah, I think that for me it was really liberating and exciting to play such a powerful woman. And we spoke about this a little bit earlier. But it was just so much fun. Like, I think I kicked you in the head or something.
Yeah.
Oh.
At that
yeah.
point.
Well, it's always fun to kick Reggie in the head.
I know. I was like, they're like, okay, we want you to like kick, and do this. I mean, not really. I was kicking the ground, but
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, oh, this is like had never done that before
Yeah.
in a scene. I'd never played a character like that. So for me, Sarah playing Tanesha, it was kind of scary because I thought, okay, I want to make this as real as possible, and I really want to live this moment. So I think that's what was really, that was what was going through my
Through
head,
your head
at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that reminds me that the female characters that Don wrote, in his scripts, they weren't just flashes here, here gone, or some silly character like, unfortunately, so many female characters have been written. No, he wrote strong women.
Yeah, it was
really
awesome.
strong.
Yeah.
And it it's just got to be fun, to play. It was just amazing to me always, and doing scenes with these strong women, that kick your ass if,
Yeah.
seriously.
Was there a moment when you and where you felt like this is a historic moment where you knew that Rocky and Tanesha were making a substantial contribution to how African American women were being portrayed in a film?
You know what? It didn't even cross my mind.
Because you were just doing your thing.
I was playing the role, and I felt empowered having, Gloria there, and I felt this is so cool because she reminded me of Grace Jones, and I loved Grace Jones.
I
you know
love
what I mean?
Grace Jones.
I used to listen to Grace
She
Jones
was
all the
awesome.
time when I was in New York, and I'm like, it was like, she's just, I couldn't think of anybody cooler at the time. I was like, I'm so happy to be working with her because she's so cool, and I just felt like, she and I had this special, this relationship going, very powerful relationship, and it was just fun, it was fun to be, a badass, and you know what I mean?
Great.
I was
Great.
like, this is my girl.
So, give us your thoughts about performances of Black female superheroes of today. Are they positive, negative?
Oh, I think there's an array of different, superheroes today. I think there's, it's hard for me to say specifically superheroes, which ones but I think that there's all, you mean in terms of whether they're positive or negative
Role models?
Role models? I think it's all positive in the sense that, you're giving an opportunity to be creative and to play the role. It's there haven't been a lot of, African American women who have played, superheroes, and so now it seems like there's a surge of women who are getting to do that, and so that's positive, unto itself, because there's so many other opportunities that are opening up for women of color. So whether we're playing, nice, or roles, or like we're saving the world or we're corrupting the world, those are characters, and those are creative perspectives and points of view that I think we should all have an opportunity as creative people to explore.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'd like to bring Gloria in and have you guys do a little reunion. Is that okay?
I would love that.
Oh,
Where is
that's
she?
that's going to be way cool.